Absolutely. We're going to talk about this super chat from Yakov22. So it is stated, sorry, my glasses are somewhere. I hope Shot and Cardale ignore OSU compliance.
Now, if you're not aware of this, and for the people who aren't aware of this, was it Brian Schottenstein is putting together a fund, and Cardale Jones is involved as well to help produce NIL money for Ohio State football players, and they're going to ask fans to contribute to it because obviously, why wouldn't you? You don't want to spend all the money yourself. You want others to fund this thing for you. And now Doug Archie, who is OSU's head of compliance, has become this enemy of the state of Ohio State fans because they are convinced that he is not going to allow Ohio State to cheat. And the thing is, he shouldn't allow Ohio State to cheat. And everybody else is, Buckeye fans are thinking everybody else is cheating. And so then Ohio State should be able to cheat. And you can't ignore compliance. Now, if compliance is going to ignore everything at other schools, that's been going on forever. I don't think you really want Ohio State to ignore this stuff because right now there will be more restrictions coming, I think, down the road. But there are still rules to follow. And I know people don't believe that, but there are actually rules for this NIL stuff in every state. And if there are no rules in the state, then they follow the NCAA's rules. So compliance does still have to be involved. There are certain things that companies can't do, and there are certain things that players can't accept. And these are all things that compliance needs to be involved in. Because if CJ Stroud is accepting stuff that you don't want, and he's sitting against Michigan and not playing, or plays the entire season, then you find out he's ineligible, you lost your national championship. Like, this is still the real world. And I know people are like, and Yakov 2022 is a very loyal listener, watcher, viewer of all of us, but I don't understand the angst and the hate that is headed towards Ohio State compliance right now. I don't get it at all. People are out for blood, and it's Lord of the Flies type of thing going on right now with this NIL stuff.
I believe part of the issue, I'll just jump in real quick, is there's a lot of stuff that's reported as fact that may not necessarily be fact. That Texas has this open checkbook and is buying players left and right now, and that's why they got such and such guy here or such and such guy there or whatever. And I think you have to take what's being said on these message boards and on Twitter with a grain of salt. Basically, tear it in half and throw both halves away until you see somebody who is reputable that will put their name behind these reports that such and such is doing such and such to secure players. Because there's not supposed to be any kind of what they call pay for play. Not You're not supposed to pay somebody to get them to your college. You're supposed to pay them to endorse your product or whatever it would be. And I know that is, how do you delineate that? I think defining that is probably the biggest problem that they're going to have to enact legislation to understand what that is. But there should not be inducements to get people to go to colleges. There should be sponsorship money in a sense. So, and again, who decides which is which? I don't know. But at any rate, I think part of the problem is people believe Texas, for lack of a better term, or Texas A&M,
A&M is the bigger issue
A&M,
right now.
yeah, are doing things to buy players to come to their school. And I don't know that there's been any kind of proof of that that's concrete. Um, I don't know. So I think we need to take everything with a grain of salt right now and not get so wrapped up into believing everything we see and hear. Regards to Ohio State compliance, I don't find them to be overzealous. I think they're just doing what they think is what they should do. I know in this whole thing, um, what the coaches, Chris Holtman and Ryan Day, have said is their guidance from Gene Smith is to operate within the spirit of the rule, whatever that is. And their interpretation is Ohio State cannot be involved in facilitating the name, image, and likeness money. Now, a third party, loosely affiliated, unaffiliated, maybe that works. I don't know. But at any rate, he is one of the school's top boosters. Their name's on the basketball arena. Their name is on the Pay It Forward Society over at Ohio Stadium. So they've donated in excess of $20 million. That's probably a paltry sum compared to what they really have donated over the years. But, does that mean they can't be involved in certain behaviors? I don't know. So, Kev, you go ahead. But that's kind of my feeling is don't believe everything you're hearing and what everybody else may or may not be doing. And two, compliance is just trying to keep you off probation. So that's all I have to say about that.
With all due respect to Tony Archie and Steve Archie over here, compliance truthers or whatever, I think Ohio State fans are sick and tired of seeing Ohio State self-report constantly, Ohio State misinterpret rules constantly, and because of that, they're just naturally going to assume that Ohio State is going to find a way to butch this. I agree that you don't, just because somebody else is operating outside the rules, outside the lines, doesn't mean that therefore I'm going to do it. Officer, he ran the red light. I'm going to run the red light too. I mean, if you're the one who gets caught, you're the one who gets caught. You're the one who gets cited. So you need to, I think it's about where people's tolerances are in terms of approaching lines and straddling lines and things there. I think that there is a need for the things that Brian Schottenstein are putting together. I do think that there needs to be some things there. I do think that you need to find certain ways to remain competitive with everybody else out there. I don't think you need to fly in the face of the rules and say, well, up yours, we're going to just do whatever we want to. We're Ohio State. But I think that all of this angst is coming from the fact that they believe that Ohio State, these people acting in parallel of Ohio State, because Ohio State can't put this stuff together. They'll be the first ones to tell you that over and over and over again. We can't put this together. But these people who are acting on behalf of Ohio State, if they, they'll do this or whatever, and then Ohio State will suddenly report 21 level 3 infractions or whatever, because that's what Ohio State does. And if we've learned anything through the years, don't cooperate with the NC2A. Just don't. And I mean, Tony brought up a 2012 national championship year. Don't cooperate with the NC2A. So, I have friends over in the compliance office. I've met with Doug Archie in the past. I think that in some points they may be a little overzealous in some of their reach of the things that they do, but historically speaking, Ohio State fans aren't going to have great fond memories of what compliance has done. But then again, what? When I got busted for a couple of speeding tickets in a 6-month period, I wasn't a huge fan of seeing any cops on the side of the road sitting there with their radar detectors on. So, it was what it was.
I've had a couple run-ins with them over the years where they misinterpreted, as Kevin said, a couple of things. And, I could have a really, really dim view of them. But again, there's a bureaucracy at Ohio State University that is unmatched across, our great country. So they've got somebody put out a spreadsheet. They've got 70 people on salary at a total of way over $7 to $10 million or something, just in terms of diversity or something ridiculous. And it's you need 70 people to work on diversity at Ohio State University. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I mean, that money would benefit how many minority scholarships, which would actually give you diversity. So I don't know. I'm I'm dumbfounded by some of the things I see and hear. But I don't know. I'm reserving judgment on this one.
Well, I think for me, the NIL stuff, and when I interact with people on Twitter all the time and they're terrified of it, they're angry about it, it's because they don't know it. They don't understand it. They just, well, I was told, and I see somebody saying, Mike Norris, what about Texas A&M, Tony? What about them? What have they, what? They got the number one recruiting class. They're in the SEC West. That's what happens. The greatest recruiting class of all time. Okay, but barely. So, like, what exactly did they do that has people terrified other than the fact that they have oil money and they could do stuff and they did land in number one class? But where are these smoking guns? And I know the Texas offensive line thing, it's alums and things doing this. It's not schools doing this. It's not when people say Texas is doing this, Texas A&M is doing this. No, it's not. Now, is it behind the scenes? Probably, but it's possibly, but it's not organized by schools. It's organized by individuals. And so, like it's up to Ohio State. It's up to guys like Brian Schottenstein to do this. And I agree with Kevin. It's necessary. Ryan Day, I'm sure, wants it to be done, but like I don't understand the fear. The fear comes from lack of understanding of what this actually is and what has actually happened, because not much has actually happened. Players are still going to leave if they're not playing. Just ask Quinn Ewers. Like teams aren't going to be able to stockpile guys. Texas may spend $50,000 on 15 linemen, but the linemen that aren't playing are going to hit the portal. Ohio State can go get them later if they want. All these defensive linemen that Texas A&M is getting, they're not all going to be playing. Ohio State can go get them out of the portal after a year. Assuming these guys are even any good, there's going to be so much wasted spending on players that don't pan out. But it's just a write-off for a lot of these guys. Like, how is Ohio State able to sign Quinn Ewers? How are they able to sign JT Tuimoloau? How are they able to sign Jack Sawyer? When all of this NIL money is out there, how are they able to keep CJ Stroud from leaving? How are they able to keep Travion Henderson from leaving? How are they able to keep Chris Olave? How are they able to keep Jackson Smith and Jigba from leaving right now? All of this NIL money. Where's Texas A&M? Why don't they come get these guys? Why? Answer that.
Good point.
Good, very good point.
It's quite the topic. And so one clarification here, Tony. You stated that there is, state law concerning NIL. There's NCAA rules. So the NCAA rules, the way I read into it, or based on putting some information together, is that the NCAA rules were existing, not necessarily targeted at NIL, but they kind of cover NIL in the existing rules. But now there needs to be a push to further address NIL specifically within the NCAA.
Right. I think the NCAA rule now is just like, we won't punish anybody, won't punish anybody for accepting money for name and image and likeness. And that's really what all of these state laws were. That's what Ohio's law was. It was prohibiting the NCAA from acting on players receiving benefits for their name, image, and likeness. However, there's tons of things that they can and cannot do. You can't have an endorsement that is the same as the schools. You can't have an endorsement that is in the different, like you can't endorse Reebok at a Nike school, stuff like that. There are rules. No alcohol, no tobacco,
gambling.
no gambling. Like, there are rules still in this. And then, so those, then the NCAA has their thing. Like, if you don't have a state law, follow our rules. If you do have a state law, follow those rules. NCAA is basically like, right now, we're not going to do anything about it, but eventually something is going to have to come together to where there is one round rule for everybody. And now you even got a few states where high schools allow the NIL, and it's just maybe like 4 or 5 right now, like New York, New Jersey, I think somewhere out west, Washington, maybe somewhere out there. But that's eventually going to come into play probably as well. And I know there's a lot of high school associations not looking forward to those days either.